So things that are underrated, for instance, this album of Michael Jackson, Invincible. If you haven't listened to it, make sure you do. But of course my channel isn't about albums, it's about phones. And one of those phones that I find really underrated, but seen a lot of impressions of, is the Oneplus 12. Especially in this beautiful green color. I love it in this color. But as we know, mine is about the camera performance on said phone. So let's find out how the Oneplus 12 is in terms of camera. Though keep in mind, I still haven't used it that much in terms of different situations that I can showcase a variety of images. By the way, you can purchase this phone for instance at Trading Shenzhen for about 700 euros. This includes if you buy it from an EU warehouse, which means you don't pay import tax. So, link in the description for that. It's an affiliate and you help out the channel. Either way, let's dive into the video. A lot of times when it comes to high-end phones, there's a price to pay for it. But with Trading Shenzhen and a European warehouse, so I don't need to pay import taxes, this phone is just 700 euros. It comes with 512 gigabytes inside, and for that you get the latest CPU inside as well, 16 gigabytes of RAM, a 50 megapixel sensor with an f-stop of 1.6, 23mm equivalent and a 1/142 inch sensor size. We get a 64 megapixel periscope with an f-stop of 2.6, 70mm equivalent and of course a 1/2 inch sensor size. And then lastly a 48 megapixel ultra wide with an f-stop of 2.2, 14mm equivalent and a 1/2 inch sensor size as well. Not to mention, of course, a Hasselblad color collaboration, a 5400 mAh battery with the charger included, and for the international market that's up to 100 watt and wireless up to 50 watt. This means that for the price you are paying on paper, this is amazing hardware. And as someone who has seen a lot of shots from people taken on their OnePlus, I wanted to see what this is capable of. So I bought it. And for those people, it's Orange Scooter and Jeffrey JPEG. I really would advise you to check those people out as well on Twitter. No, I'm not calling it X, that's a stupid name. But I would advise you to check them out when it comes to their photography. And now when it comes to buying this OnePlus 12, I know that the OnePlus 13 is basically around the corner. I always say though, when it comes to flagships, to look at last year's flagship for a lot of people, to give you a better price while still getting a really good performance out of it. So what has my experience been like with the OnePlus 12 was still having a limited experience in terms of different situations as in autumn or winter. Well, let me start shortly at the Nantes itself, where I was last week for a comparison. Yes, I drove 3 hours to and 3 hours back for a comparison, and no, I'm not okay. Either way, when it comes to OnePlus, I will say it doesn't always have my preference when it comes to the color and the way that they shoot in auto. The colors are a little bit off for me and it can miss out in the contrast and brightness, though the latter is easy to fix as well. Now for the main sensor, on the OnePlus 12 I think it's really able to capture some stunning shots, even in pretty flat weather where the sky is basically acting like a big diffuser, removing a lot of those hard shadows and bright spots. It still manages to capture some pleasing shots. And inside the bunker itself, in terms of colors, it gets pretty close to showcase how it was. The whites aren't too warm nor too cold, it's well balanced. I also noticed that the greens aren't too punchy, something that a lot of phones have. This really helps out defining the individual trees or branches from each other in shots like this where it really matters. Sure, if you zoom into the shot a bit, it doesn't have the same quality as Xiaomi or Vivo data on, and parts of the shots can look a bit artificial when it comes to the ultra wide in shots like these. But when looking at shots like this at full on these styles of pictures, I think they deliver a solid quality. Just don't zoom in too much when it comes to the ultra wide. And with the main camera, there are genuinely very little comments that I have about the quality, even managing the greens better than the ultra wide. And I would even say it doesn't go for a too bright look here as well, without me adjusting anything. Now when it comes to zooming in, yes, you have to stand pretty still to get the best out of it, else you get this bit of a soft look around the bottom of the shot itself, depending on what kind of shot you're going for. But as zoom quality goes, there's nothing to really dismiss when you look at the price for the phone itself, which is really a big factor for a phone like this. And this includes video recording as well, with the rear camera and the front facing camera. So let's quickly do that. HDR video recording. And when you record HDR, you can zoom in 3 times. gonna zoom in there. Front-facing camera on the Oneplus 12, it's 4K 30 frames per second. Honestly, in terms of image, looks fine. It has some contrast to it, it has some depth to it. The sun is quite bright and you can see it reflecting on me. I think it looks good, looks solid. Nothing special, but it looks good for a phone like this. This is perfectly fine. So back to the shots. When it comes to photography on phones, what matters to me is the possibility to play around. Be it in the pro mode or of course styles. And that is of course something that the OnePlus 12 supports, including the nice black and white photography that I love to play around with in different situations. Even more so in the colder months that are coming up. And in general, I think so far in the different situations that I've been, the OnePlus 12 does do really well, especially for the price itself. Be it at the Open Air Museum in Arnhem, of course, where I've been several times to test out different phones in different situations because of the buildings inside and outside. Or something like Paleis at Low, we have stunning gardens and of course beautiful Victorian interiors as well, giving a lot of different styles that you can play around with and of course properly test out how the phone does in different situations. Now of course, when it comes to low light, there's a factor of feel that really comes to play for me. And Xiaomi excels in comparison to what others do. It's doing a great job at capturing that night feel that I really want to capture. Meaning dark spots that are dark, bright spots that are bright. And realistically, I would say that OnePlus doesn't do that per se. But depending on the sensor you're using, the quality is solid. Sure, the ultra wide will give you a softer image like a lot of phones do. And of course, there's more glare from the lights as well when you use that ultra wide. But again, keep in mind the price that you are paying for a phone like this. Even more so with the release of the 13 being so close, that might even push that price down a little bit more. This I think is still a very solid camera performance, beating out the likes of the iPhone 16 Pro in situations as well. Even though that doesn't seem like a challenge at all. So at the end, when I think about the OnePlus 12 and the camera performance for it, for the price that you are paying, it can compete with some flagships. It can beat some of them. iPhone 16 Pro. When it comes to the camera performance, I really liked what you can do with the periscope as well. This gives some really solid shots, and I've seen some amazing shots from Jeffrey JPEG and Orange Scooter as well, as stated, using that same sensor. I think this camera is really capable, and if you want to pay a little bit less for a phone but still get a flagship experience, this is one of those phones that I can easily recommend, with good battery life, a great display, a pretty good design depending on your preference, and especially in this color, because I really love this color. But overall, when it comes to the use of the phone itself, I think this is one of those stellar phones that you just simply pay a lot less for compared to some flagships. Either way, I really want to thank my members first of all. Thank you so much for the support. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to become a member, you can of course become a member below, but you don't have to. It just helps out the channel a little bit. Either way, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe and so on. And talk to you guys in the next.